Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to move a filtered range. So we're going to use the auto filter function in Excel, and we're going to be able to apply some filters and move the selected range. Before we get started, I want to remind you to go to excelvbasequel.com. You could download all this code that you see in the videos. You could also watch hours and hours of VBA training videos. If you have any questions, contact me through the site. Okay, so let's get started. So let's say we're given this data here. We have a column with names in it, a column with this should be sex or gender, either one. So the gender of the person, whether they're male or female, the name of the person, and then the age of the person. Okay. So what we want to do is, let's say every day we get this data and it's different every day, and we need to filter males that are in, or females that are between 50 and 59. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's start by, okay, once we get that data that is filtered females between 50 and 59, then our requirement is to copy it and move it to this historical tab. Okay, so every day we get this data on the data tab. It's different. We need to find the females over 50, and we need to move it to this historical tab. Okay, so let's first start by just getting that data of the females over 50. So the first thing I would do is I would just record a macro. So go to the developer tab, record a macro, and I would click OK. And now I would just apply a filter on the home tab. You can scroll over, you can go to auto filters and just do filter. And when you come back over here, you can select female from here. Okay, and then you can select I'm going to unselect everything, and I'm going to select everything that says 50 to 59. Okay, so here is our our data that we have, and now we want to copy it to this historical tab. Okay, so let's do that. Let's now copy this, and it's up to you. Originally, let's just copy the whole thing. Okay, so let's just copy the whole thing over to this historical tab, and I'm going to paste it. Okay, and then we're going to stop recording, go back to the developer tab, press stop recording. So now we're going to see what VBA automatically created for us. I'm going to press escape here, and I'm going to go to the window, and there is a macro here. Because we used a macro recorder, we can see that here's what the code looks like. So what we notice is that we have a range, right? A1. We select it, and on that selection we do selection.autofilter. And what this line does is it puts the filters on the whole row here. Okay. Okay, so that's what that line does. And then then we apply a filter to it. So we do ActiveSheet.range A1 to C11, and we do autofilter field number 2 is equal to field number 2 comma critical, and then this colon equals F. So what does this line do? Well, all that line does is it applies the autofilter to this range, and on the second field, so it applied the autofilter to this range. On the second field, it selected F. Okay, that's all that this line did right here. And notice that the field stands for, in this range of A to C, what is the second field? Well, it's column B. Okay, so like you could say the field matches up to the index of whatever column the range is in. So if you have a range from A to C, field number 2 is going to be gender, and then it said critical equal to F. Okay, so we selected that. Now we also put a filter on field number 3, which was the age, and it does the same thing. It says, active sheet range A to C, auto filter field 3, which is the age field right here. Critical is equal to an array now. So why is it using an array? Well, it's using this array because we selected multiple values, 50, 57, and 59. Okay? And then it goes operator equal XL filter values. So here you set your filters, and this operator it then it filters them. Okay? So these lines are pretty powerful. They're pretty important. The first line again goes in here and selects F. The second line goes in the third field, the third column, age, and selects everything. We selected 50 to 59, 50, 57, and 59, and you could see that here. Okay, so let's make some modifications, right? Because in our code, we want to select everything from 50. We want 51. We want 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. And notice this thing here, this little underscore. That just means you can carry it to the next line. If you don't want to keep writing because the screen will start to scroll over, that underscore over, this underscore over here, it carries things to the next line. But remember, you need your commas, okay? But if you want to carry things to the next line, use that underscore. So I'm just going to expand this array because I want females between 50 and 59. So here's 53, 56, here's 57, here's 58, and there's 59. Okay, so now I changed that so that I have my filters are correct, and now I can use this, right? Yes, I could definitely use this. So let's see. Okay, so now we have a macro that works, right? So let's just run this again. Notice that though, if I run this right now, watch what happens. The auto filter is still filtered, right? So here's a little not a problem, but I left out this quotations here. Okay, so watch this. So I'm just gonna get rid of these comments here. If I run it again, notice that the filters are still on. So that's sort of I don't know, it's not very good because I don't want the filters on. But notice what happens when the filters are on like this. When I run this line here, selection.autofilter, it takes them off. Okay, and then if I run this again, it's going to filter the females, and then I'm going to step through it again, and it filters 50 to 59. So I expanded the array to 50 to 59, and in fact it did still work properly. Okay, so that's cool. We have our code that can filter a range. Now we also have our code that can select this range, right? It's going to select the range, and it's going to, let's see, copy this range and go to the historical tab and go to range A1 and then paste them. But here we have a problem, right? Now we're running into a problem, is that when we copy the data from here, we have the header row in our copied range, right? And when we go to paste it, it's gonna paste the header row again, and that's not what we want, because I could write some code to say go to the blank cell and paste it, but it's still going to have the header row in here. So it wouldn't be very effective to have this header row again, name, gender, age, in this to paste it again with the header row. So I want to eliminate that header row from this selection. So how do I do that? Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this historical tab, and I'm just going to clear out all the data. Okay, and now I'm going to have just one header row, name, gender, and age. I'm just going to put them in bold. I'm going to go back to this data tab, right? And I want to point out a couple things. Is that somehow we need to select, I don't want this header row because of the thing I just stated, that when I go to copy it to the next tab, it's going to copy that header row as well, and I don't want this. So somehow I need to identify this range right here, okay? But notice that this range, it begins at row 7 and it ends, it goes from 7 to 11, but it's only the visible rows, okay? There are hidden rows here because of these filters. So if I take off, if I select all here, notice that some rows became visible here, right? And if I take off this filter and I select all, by selecting all, more rows become visible. And notice that the range, when I apply the filters, it shrinks down and it makes rows hidden and invisible, and it makes rows hidden, okay? And somehow you need to identify the first row in that range, in that selection. So this is sort of tricky. It's a little bit tricky to find the row that is the first visible row, okay? But we can do it, and let's do it right now. So how are we going to do it? Let me take off the filters here. And what I want to do is go back into the code. And for right now, let's see. I'm just going to delete this part here. Actually, I'm just going to comment it out. Because this range A1 to C11, this is not what I want, because this includes the header row. So I cannot use this anymore. So I'm just going to delete that. This code up here is good for selecting stuff, but I cannot use that other code because it has that other stuff in it. So let's write some more code here. I'm going to do first thing I want to do is make this a little bit more flexible. I want to do dim start sheet as string. So I want to be able to maybe use this on other workbooks, on other worksheets, and so I'm going to make it a little bit more flexible. I'm going to do start sheet is equal to active sheet.name. So here I'm able to just, instead of hard coding names of sheets, I'm just going to put them in a variable. So I have a variable here, start sheet, that is just going to give me the active sheet that I'm starting on, okay? And then I want to do dim xrow as integer. I'm going to use that later, and I'm going to do dim header row as integer. Now dim header row is going to be the row that this it's going to be this row, the row that the headers are in, okay? The first row, the row with the auto filters, okay? Then I'm going to do just dim x as integer. So I'm going to use these variables later, okay? So now let's get started. So first thing I want to do is that I want to turn off the auto filter whenever it's on. So I want to do if let's see, I'm going to do this. First thing I'm going to do is do start sheet dot select, just to select, to make sure I have the sheet selected. Then I'm going to do if selection, if start sheet dot auto filter is equal to true, then I want to turn it off. So I'm just going to do selection.autofilter. So what I mean is, if I come into the worksheet and there's a filter on here like this, if I come into the worksheet and there's an auto filter already on, I want to turn it off. And that's just so I can see all the data. Okay, so I'm going to put a comment here to say if auto filter is on, then turn it off. Okay, So we can step through this code. Actually, I need to do active sheet here. Okay, and also I'll do active sheet here. So I'm going to use this start sheet later on when I'm copy pasting the selections, but initially let's just do this. So here I come to the sheet and it has the auto filters on, and I just want to turn them off. So that's what this is going to do here. If active sheet.autofilter is true, which it is, then I'm just going to let me see. Actually, this is auto filter mode, not auto filter. Sorry about that. So here, and I spelled this wrong. Okay, so let's step through it now. I come to the sheet, it has auto filters on. This right here, as soon as I hit that, those filters are going to go away, and they do. Okay, so I'm doing that just so that when I come to the worksheet, I can see all the data. I'm not dealing with other filters on or anything that. It's just like a precaution to make sure you're working with a range without any filters on it. Okay, so let's see. Now what I want to do is I want to find the last row. Okay, I want to find the last row. The last row here. I want to find the last row in this whole range. Okay, so the reason I took off the auto filters is so that I could do is so that I can do something like this. X row is equal to range. I'm gonna put A. Now there's a million rows in 2007, so I'm just gonna do this. A 999,000 dot end, and then I'm gonna do XL up. Okay. Okay, so now I can find that row. And so if I go here and I just run this, and I just put a watch on this, you can see that X row is equal to 11. Okay, so I took off the filters, I find the last row. Okay, now I can put on my auto filters, and I can use this X row down here. Okay, so I can do instead of it hard coding it as 11, now I can have some more flexibility and do something like this. C to and X row, and that's that. So this is being more flexible, right? So now I'm not limited by, you don't need to know how many rows are in. You don't need to hard code the rows, because what if your data set changes size, right? So now you have you're being more flexible by dynamically finding the last row and then saying, okay, in the active sheet, in this entire range, apply the auto filter to this whole entire range. But tomorrow it might be this big, but that's okay because I found this last row. And the next day it might be that big, but again, it's going to be okay because you found this last row by doing this X row over here. Okay, so, and over here you select A1 and you put the auto filter on A1. So let's walk through this. If I put the auto filter on, there's the auto filter, right? And if I step through this, here it filters female. Okay, so now we have a flexible, we're getting more flexible here. This is a more flexible way of coding out how to do this. Okay, so now what you want to do now is somehow, you know, let me step through it again. I'm just going to run it, and I'll put the filters on, and I'll show you. Okay, we get to this point, right? So now our problem is, how do we find that we only want to select from A7 to C11? Okay, now this is where it's a little bit tricky, and it's not too difficult, but it's a little tricky. So let's walk through this part. Okay, so now we want to do something like this. We want to do something like set filtered range, and I should declare a range up here. So I'm going to select, I declared a range object up here. And a range object, remember, is just, you know, a block of cells. So I'm going to set this filtered range equal to something. And what I'm going to set it equal to is, you know, the active sheet dot auto filter. And then I'm going to say range dot special cells, and then this special cells function, it takes a property where you can say, you know, with this range of cells, only show me the cells that are visible, or only show me the cells that are, you know, there's some other properties, but I'm going to use this, the one that says cell type visible, because remember, there's some cells here that are hidden, right? And I only want the visible ones. So when I do that, when I do this special cells visible, Excel cell type visible, I could actually show you by doing it this way. If I just do this and bring this down, I'm just going to comment this out for now, right? So now let me do this. Let me run it, and let me step through some lines here. So here I'm at this line here, right here, active sheet auto filter range special cells Excel type visible dot select. So what do you think this is going to do? Well, it's going to look at the auto filter range, which is this whole range right here, including the header row, and it's going to do Excel special type visible, Excel type visible select. So it's going to select everything you see here, and let me step through and show you that. It's because I spelled this wrong. I'm just going to run it and put a breakpoint here so that we can see that this works. Right? So let me run it. You know, there it's highlighted. I'm going to step through, and there it is. Right? You see that it changed it. It selected these cells. Okay. So that's good. So now we can use this to identify only the visible cells, and we could select that. But again, we need to further manipulate this, because we only want row 7. Somehow we need to identify this row. So to do that, we copy this back up, and we take off this, and we say now we have a filtered range. Okay, and again we have a range object, and I set the filtered range object equal to what you just saw, you know, this whole thing here. Okay, and now I'm gonna set this header row. Remember, I declared header row as integer. I do header row is equal to active sheet dot, I'm just going to copy this. I'm just going to copy it here. So the header row, which is this row here, you know, row 1. How do I find that row? Well, you do this. You do active sheet dot autofilter range dot special cells. The same thing. Show me the visible cells, but instead of doing select, you do areas. Okay. And then you do 1 dot row. So this will give us 1. Okay. And if this wasn't in row 1, it would give us whatever row the autofilter has header rows are in. So if I just move this whole thing down like 50 rows, it would say 51 is the header row. So let's run this, and let me put a watch on this, just so you see that it should show up 1. I'm going to break point there. I'm going to stop that, and if I run this, oh, sorry, I should say this. When I set the filtered range, you don't want to put the select here. You just want to do it like that. So let me go back here and run it. Okay, so now when I step through this header row, right now it's it's 0 in memory. If I step through, there it is. It's 1. Okay. So the big concept here is, what is this areas thing doing? Well, an area is just like a contiguous block of cells. Okay. So I could put up a video on exactly what an area is, but it's just really if you have a contiguous block of cells, you can have when you select something like that, this is an area, right? But then I can press Control, and I can also select this here, and that's another area, and I can press Control again, and that's another area. And what happens is Excel keeps track of that. So because this is a auto-filtered range, it qualifies as an area, and it's the first area. So basically, it's the first group of cells, and you want the row of it. And if you have an area that is of this, that looks like this, the row starts at the upper right, so it's going to be whatever the row of this cell is, and it's going to be 1. Okay. But you don't need to know all the details of what is this area thing doing. It's good to know. You can Google it. I could put up a video later, but that's how you find the header row of a filtered range. Okay. So once we have the header row, what we want to do next is we want to somehow identify this row, which is the 7th row. So how do we do that? Let's do that right now. So what we do, I'm going to put a breakpoint, is we loop through each range in the filtered range, and each actually row in the filtered range. And what this is doing is looping through all the rows in the filtered range. And what we want to do is we want to I should declare another variable up here, dim last row as integer. We want to find the first row 7, and we want to find the last row 11, so that we can then select 7 to 11, column A 7 to C 11, select that and copy it. And to do that, we need to select declare a variable last row and set it to this range row dot 2. Okay. And so let's see. Range row dot row. And what we're going to do is keep looping through every row of this range, so that when we loop through the last time, this last row is updated as the last row that we go through. Okay. And then also, while we're looping through, we need to identify the first row, right? So to do that, we do something like this. We do if range row dot hidden is equal to false. So we don't want anything hidden. We only want the first visible row. And how do we do that? Well, we can find the visible ones by saying hidden is equal to false, and range row dot row does not equal to header row. Okay, and so this will say give me the visible row that doesn't equal the header row. Okay, and the first time we loop through, we're gonna have it. We're gonna be on the first row we want, which is 7. But somehow we need to flag it. So I put a variable here, flag is equal to 0, and then end if. So now I have to set this flag. So the first time through, I come to this row, number 7, and hidden is equal to false, and the row of this range row doesn't equal header row, which equal to 1. So it's going to fall into this if statement. Okay, and all I need to do then is set the flag equal to 1, so that the next time I loop through this whole range, it's not going to fall into this thing here, and I could do this. First row is equal to range row dot row. Okay, so this might be a little tricky, maybe a little confusing, but it's actually not at all. What you're doing is just looping through this whole range here. Okay, and the first time you loop through, well, actually not the first time, the initial thing you did up here was identify the header row. Okay, and we saw that that's going to be 1. And the first time that you encounter a row that isn't equal to header row, and the flag is equal to 0. So let me go outside here and just declare the flag is equal to 0. And up here I should also declare the variable flag. So I'm going to do dim flag as integer. And also let me declare variable dim first row as integer. Okay, so all I'm doing is I have my filtered range. I find the header row, which is equal to 1. I set this flag equal to 0, and then I loop through every row here, and I find the first row where the header row, where 1 doesn't equal whatever row it is. And in this case, the first one is 7. So 7 doesn't equal to 1. I identify that as my first row by doing this right here. 1 doesn't equal 7, and the flag is 0, because the first time you go through, the flag is equal to 0. Well, actually, the first time you go through, you have 1 is equal to 1, right? So it's not going to fall through here. Second time you go through, you have 1 is equal to 7, because header row 1 is equal to 7, or is not equal to 7. So it's gonna fall in here. You set the flag to 1, so you can set the first row equal to the range row. Okay, so now let's we can move on from that, and now we could do something like, we have to do something like this. If is empty first row, because what happens if there are no females that are between 50 and 59? Then we're not going to have any rows here, right? So we have to account for that by doing this if the first row is empty. So we do that. If the first row is, if there is something in the let me just put something here. So here what this if statement is going to do is basically do if the filtered range is not blank. I'll put returns rows. So if our filtered range returns rows, then I want to do something. Otherwise, I don't want to do anything, because there would be nothing here to copy. Okay, and you have to account for that. So now we can do this. We can do range, and now we can do A and first row. So all I'm doing is now I'm selecting A7 to C11, and I use the first row variable here. So I do A first row, which is going to be 7, right? N, and then I append something to it. C, and last row, right? Dot select. Okay, so maybe I should step through things right here, and we could see where things are at. So right here I set my first row and my last row, and let me just run through this. I spelled integer wrong. Let me loop through this. Oops, this should be rows, not rows, or rows, not row. So when you loop through this range, it has to be a collection of something, so something plural. So let me go through again. Okay, so I stopped here, right? And let me just show you what first row is and what last row is in memory. So right now, in memory, first row is 7, last row is 11. And that's what this for each loop is doing. So that's important. And now we can do this line. If is empty, first row is equal to false. So in our case, the first row is 7. Okay? So it's going to fall into this. So it does return rows. And let's just step through and look at what happened there. You know, after I executed this line, look at what is selected. You know, A7 to C11. Okay, so I'm just going to end if. Let me show you something. If I change this to, you know, if I change this instead of female, let's say I put G in here, just to show you what happens if this is going to be, if first row is going to be empty. Okay. Notice that why would first row be empty? Well, it would be because there are no rows in this filtered range. So let's put a breakpoint here, and I'll run through this, and you'll see. So look at, because I put G as a gender and there is no G, there are no rows in the filtered range. So when I step through this, it says range last row is equal to 1 here, right? And now if I go through this one more time, it's, you know, everything is hidden, right? Because there is no G. So now you keep going through and it just jumps out, right? And first row is still empty. So then let's see what happens here. If the filter range returns rows, well, it doesn't. So let's see if it steps over. Actually, this should be this should be 0. Instead of being is empty, it should be 0. Because let's run this again. So first row here should be greater than 0. I'm sorry. Right? So we don't want to do, so here I'm going to write some code to copy and paste this to another sheet, but if there's no rows here, then I don't need to do anything. And this will catch that. If I execute this, it jumps over that. You see that? Okay, so now we're safe. We're not going to do anything if there's no rows returned. Okay, so let me go back here. I'm going to change this back to female. Okay, and I'm going to go down here, and now I can write my code that will copy it to the sheet I want. So then I could just do this. I could do selection.copy, because I remember I just selected the range I want, and then I could do sheets. I'm just going to write the select real quick. I'll go back here, and I want to select the historical sheet. Okay. And now I have to write some code So the first time I go to historical, I'm going to put myself in A2, right? But after that, I want to be able to find the last row here and select that. So, this is how you do that. You just do if, and this was in a couple other videos. If range A2 is equal to blank, then, and if you do range A2 dot select. So this is like the first time you run it, range A2 will be blank, right? Else, actually, I want to do this. Else you want to basically do something like this, range A1 dot end XL down. So you're just going to move down, the column A, and you want to go one extra row, so that's why you go offset 1 row 0 columns dot select. Okay, so this code here is going to put you in the right cell, and then you're just going to do selection dot paste special. You can do paste equals XL paste values. And I'm not doing this from memory. I have a piece of paper in here that has the macro on it. I think that's good enough. You can just put the paste specials there, and all you got to do next is do application dot cut copy mode false. Okay, and then we'll just we'll select our sheet again. So we could just do this, sheets start sheet dot select, and we'll put range A1 dot select. Okay, so let's get to this point. I should go up here, and I want to make sure that I'm on the data tab. So I want to make sure I'm on the data tab, so I'm just going to put data in there, and I'm going to put sheets start sheet dot select. Okay, so I'm just going to run this now, and I want to show you here where we get to the copy part. So we already are familiar and we're comfortable that we can copy the correct range, and here we're going to copy the correct range without the header row, which was our main motivation for this whole exercise. Then I select the historical sheet, right? And if A2 is blank, then I select A2 and I paste special. So right there, excuse me, right there I just pasted from one sheet to another, I pasted the range that I want. Okay, now I'm just going to go back to the start sheet and select A1, right? Okay, so now let's run it again and do this and see what happens. So we run it again and we get another, the same 3, but now we should go to a different area on the historical tab. So here we're on the historical tab, right? And what you just saw real quick there was range A2 dot value is equal to blank. That's false, so it falls into this else. And this line here, range A1 XL down dot offset dot select, what that does is identify this cell. It says go down A1 until there's nothing, until you find the first blank one, and go one extra row. So it finds this, and that I select that cell, and then I just do selection paste special. Okay, and then I go back to start sheets, and that's it. So that's the code that you need. If I run it again, let me just take this off. If I run it again, and I run it again, and I run it again, what you're going to see on the historical tab, there it is. It's just like, there's my 3 females who are between 50 and 59. So also, what if you wanted to come back to the sheet and not see it filtered? Well, all you would have to do then is just do you just do selection dot auto filter. You do range A1 to C1 selection dot auto filter. Okay, so let's run it again. And now I don't come back to a sheet with the auto filters on it. And I could keep running this, and you'll see that what happens is, it just finds the females with between 50 and 59 all the time, and it just keeps copying them from one sheet to another without the header row. Notice that there's no header row here, and the whole point of this video is that you don't want to deal with this header row, so you have to do something like this right up here. This is the most important part of the video right here, okay, where you identify the visible cells and you put that into a range, and then you find the header row by using this areas function. I believe it's a function or a property. Use the areas property. I'm going to say it's property, but you might want to double check. But use that areas to find the header row. Then you find the first row and the last row by looping through all the rows, and you could find the first visible row and the last visible row, and then you copy and paste it from one sheet to another. So this is I would say this is a powerful macro because it allows you to filter on a whole bunch of stuff. If you had 15 columns here that needed to be filtered, you could easily filter 15 columns with multiple criteria by just doing this, right? You could use multiple criteria, multiple columns, and you'll be fine. So this is pretty powerful. To find a data set with gender and age, you could have 100 different other things, and you could do all these filters and copy paste from one sheet to another to build like a historical database or something. So that's one way of filtering and getting the data you want if you wanted females between 50 and 59. Let's try to filter males between, oh no, I'm not going to show you how to do that. Yeah, let's just try males between 50. So if I go here and I just change this to males, right? Now if I run it, I go back to the historical tab, I have 2 males that are between 50 and 53, right? Okay, cool. So let me delete all this. I'm going to clear contents, and now let me try something else. I'm going to try to do males and females. So I'm just going to do that dot array male comma female. Okay, so now I should get all the males and females, and sure enough, on the historical tab, let's see. Well, let's check this out. I'm going to paste this as well up here and just rerun it. Okay, so that's a little trick. It was probably good that I did that, because when I changed this to just critical array male female and I didn't have this operator over here, we saw that the males didn't appear, only the females. And I believe, maybe what's happening is that this operator XL filter values, that is actually needed to control the filtering of your range. So let me just clear this out once again and show you the when you're working with multiple arrays and multiple filters. So I want male females between 50 to 59. That's two criteria that have arrays, right? Well, just the pointer that we just saw is that you definitely need to have this operator equals XL filter value. So let me just run it again, and we should see male and female. Okay, everything's good. So that's how you do it. This is a pretty powerful macro, I think, because in a lot of data sets you need to find stuff, you need to filter stuff, and you can certainly do that with this macro. Okay, so that's it. Hope you enjoyed that. It's very useful. Once again, I'm going to post the code for this on excelvbasql.com, so you could just download it and you can get right to using it. And you can also watch the video again for free on excelvbasql.com, and there's like 8 hours or 7 or 8 hours of video right now, actually 7.5. But after this video, it'll go up to 8. So there's a lot of good content on here. If you want to be a VBA programmer, if you want to really advance your career, if you learn some of these techniques and ways to automate stuff, you're gonna have a lot of success. So that's it. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks.